The spirits had been silent observers of Amaka's journey. They had admired her strength in the face of mockery from her mother-in-law, as well as her kindness and compassion. As the spirit approached Amaka, she felt a rush of fear. She trembled violently, but she was resolved to accomplish her mission and save Nneka.
Amaka, they began. We have watched you carry yourself with beauty and grace all these years. You have been mocked because of your skin. But what you do not know is that the white markings on your skin are an ancestral symbol of prosperity. Once every 100 years, a special child like you is born in one of the 9 villages, and that village will experience prosperity and abundance. Amaka, the spirits continued. You have shown great courage and strength, and have proven yourself to be worthy of your markings, and so we will grant you one request. Ask us one thing, whatever it is, and we will do it.
Amaka was shocked. The spiritual relation meant that she was not cursed, but that she was a blessing to the entire village, even though nobody knew it. She knew that she wanted to have a baby with Ugo, but when she weighed it, she realized that Nneka's life was worth more than her desire to have a baby. I want the fruit of life, Amaka whispered. My mother-in-law is gravely ill, and without it she will die. You have a pure heart, little girl. You could have asked us for a child, but because you are so selfless, you put the needs of others before yourself. For this reason, we will give you the fruit of life, and also grant you your deepest desire. From the shimmering air, the spirits produced the herb. Its leaves glowed with a soft light, and it bore a single fruit, radiant and pulsating with life. It was a magic fruit, known to bestow the gift of fertility. It was vibrant red, with a sweet, intoxicating scent, unlike Amaka had ever seen. Eat this fruit just before the first light of dawn, Amaka, the spirit instructed. It will bless you with fertility and ensure the prosperity of your lineage. But remember, tell no one about what has happened here today. With the sacred herb in her hand, and the spirit's words echoing in her mind, Amaka felt a surge of gratitude. She thanked the spirits, her voice trembling with emotion. As she left the forest, she carried with her not just the fruit of life, but also the fruit of fertility. When Amaka returned, she was surprised to know that 3 whole days had gone by. Ugo, who had feared the worst, was very happy to see her. He hugged her tightly with tears in his eyes. Together, they administered the herb to Nneka, and almost immediately, Nneka's health improved and she instantly recovered. In no time, she was back to her daily activities. Despite Amaka's selfless act, when Nneka recovered, her attitude towards Amaka remained unchanged. She continued to belittle her, her words as sharp as a knife. She had no idea that Amaka had been gifted the fruit of fertility by the spirits. Amaka, who had taken the fruit as instructed, said nothing and did not mention a word of her encounter to anybody, not even Ubu. One day, Nneka decided that she had had enough of Amaka, and so she devised an evil plan to get rid of her for good. We waited for her son to leave for the farm, and when he returned, he met her outside the hut, looking disheveled, with her wrapper dirty and torn. As soon as Nneka sighted Ubu, she began to wail loudly. "They have killed me, oh! They have killed me! They have killed me, oh!" Ugo immediately rushed to her. "Mama, what is wrong? What happened? Why are you crying?" Nneka began to tearfully narrate to Ugo how she had come back early from the market and had found Amaka inside the hut with a strange man. She told him that when she tried to confront them, the strange man and Amaka beat her, tore her wrapper, and pushed her naked into the streets. She showed him the bruises on her arms as proof of what had happened. What Ugo did not know was that she inflicted all those bruises on herself. On hearing the commotion, the neighbors quickly gathered. They knew it was out of character for Amaka to do such, and so they tried to defend her and to explain to Ugo what had been going on in his absence. But Ugo would hear none of it. He angrily ran into the room and dragged Amaka out, screaming at the top of his voice. He called her a prostitute and told her that her prostitution was the reason why she was still barren. When she tried to explain, he pushed her roughly, went into the hut, and began to throw out her belongings. "Get out of my sight, you harlots," he screamed. Amaka begged tearfully, but Ugo refused to listen. She cried and pleaded, but he wouldn't budge. She sat by the hut all day, hoping that Ugo would see the errors of his ways and let her back in. But when he began to get there, Amaka had no choice but to shamefully return back to her parents' house with her belongings. When she explained all that had transpired, her father put his foot down and decided that enough was enough. He decided that he was no longer going to allow his daughter to suffer in the marriage just because of a skin condition that she had no control over. Amaka cried bitterly, but her father assured her that the truth was like smoke. "Hide it as much as you like, it will always come out." He promised her that one day the truth will come out and she will be vindicated. Meanwhile, Nneka was very happy with her success. She and her 4 evil daughters cheered happily. They had succeeded in chasing away the barren, ugly Amaka. What they didn't know was that the barren Amaka was already 2 months pregnant. Nneka quickly tried to match Ugo with Chinwe, another of her friend's daughter, but Ugo found her to be selfish and shallow. He tried to court some of the beautiful girls that his sisters had recommended, but none caught his interest. He was depressed and lonely and missed Amaka, his wife, dearly, but he could not bear to forgive her for betraying him. In fact, he swore to himself that he would never take her back, and so he went about his life bitter and miserable, often sighing and talking to himself about the betrayal. When it became clear that Ugo was unwilling to take a new wife, and that he had become bitter and increasingly difficult to live with, Nneka quietly packed her bags and returned back to her house. Her daughters too became very scarce. 3 years later, Uju, Nneka's daughter, got married, and when she could not conceive after only 6 months of marriage, she began to face hell at the hands of her mother-in-law as well. She cried bitterly to her mother Nneka, and both of them, having such short memory, had forgotten that they had done the same thing to Amaka over her inability to conceive. Unbeknownst to them, the spirit had shut the womb of Nneka's 4 daughters because of their wicked deeds. Nneka and her daughter, Uju, visited all the medicine men in the village, but it was fruitless until one of them suggested that they visit the forest of Uda to beg the spirits for a child. If they found your heart to be pure and good, they would grant you your heart desires, but if they didn't, they might inflict a curse on you. Again, Nneka and Uju had forgotten what they had done to Amaka. They wore their best clothes and ventured into the forest, carrying their gifts for the spirits. When they got to the mouth of the forest, their hands were shaking in fear, but they mustered up the courage to walk in. The forest was alive with spirits. Their voices were loud in the trees, the leaves were swooshing actively, and there was a loud sound of thunder and lightning. When Nneka and Uju finally made it to the heart of the forest, where the sacred grove of the spirit was, it trembled and presented their offerings. Before they could open their mouth to speak, a loud voice screeched, "Take those offerings away, evil woman! We want no part in your offerings. You have been wicked to an innocent girl, and now you will pay the price. You will both suffer terribly until you atone for your sins." The wind began to howl, and the trees shuddered. The birds cried, and the bats flew in a circle. A bolt of lightning struck them right on their face, and to their greatest horror, they were covered in boils. The boils were big and painful, and oozed a foul-smelling liquid when they walked. They both scrambled to their feet and ran out of the forest crying. When they got to the villagers were shocked to find them in such condition. They inquired to know what had happened, but Amaka and Uju were in too much pain to speak. They made their way to Ugu's house and found him sitting alone in front of his hut. He had been alone for the past 3 years, with no companion or friend. His mother and sister stopped visiting him, saying that he was boring and no longer interesting to be around. When Nneka and Uju saw Ugu, they narrated everything that had happened. They told him the truth about how they had lied against Amaka just to scatter his marriage. They told him that Amaka had never cheated on him and that it was all a lie. Nneka cried and begged for forgiveness, but Ugu was too shocked to speak. He looked at them in anger and pain and immediately dressed up and ran hurriedly to Amaka's village to beg for her forgiveness. He hoped she will forgive him and take him back. When he got there, he narrated everything his mother had told him and pleaded with Amaka to return back to the village with him as his wife. Amaka's father was a patient man and he allowed Ugu to speak. When he was done talking, Amaka's father quietly walked into his hut and returned with a small bag of cowries. It was the exact amount Ugu had paid as bride price for Amaka 5 years ago. He placed the bag carefully into Ugu's hands and calmly asked him to stand up and leave their house. He reminded Ugu of his promise to take care of his daughter Amaka and how he had violated that promise by beating her and throwing her into the streets. I would rather take my daughter in one piece than see her in the grave because of you and your evil mother, he said. Ugu begged and begged. He promised them that he was going to be his own man and would bring his mother and sisters under control. But it was too late. Their minds were already made up. He tried to talk to Amaka privately to plead with her, but she would not give him an audience. When Ugu saw that their minds were made up, he accepted his fate. As he stood up to leave, he spotted a young boy of about 3 years old playing in the sand under a mango tree. The child was a spitting image of Ugu and even had the same birthmark as he on the side of his face. Ugu had a son. Maduka! Amaka's father called out to the boy. Come and meet your father. Maduka was introduced to Ugu, and Ugu tearfully hugged him. Amaka told him that he could come from time to time to visit Maduka, but that they were never going to return with him to live as a family. Ugu mourned the loss of his family, and with tears in his eyes, he returned back to the village, where the news had spread like wildfire. The villagers avoided them like a plague, and Uju's husband sent her packing as well. Nobody wanted to incur the wrath of the spirits by associating themselves with such an evil family. Amaka eventually met a kind, wealthy merchant from a neighboring village who loved her despite her skin. He cared for her and raised Maduka as his own.